of all, we are starting with what is DevOps. I have given you the brief introduction, like what we do in the DevOps. First of all, DevOps is the software development methodology, which is about the collaboration between our developers and operations team using various automation tools. Like if, for example, if a software developer is developing something and the operation teams make sure that it gets live on time and everything with the required things. So DevOps teams do the combination of both the works so that we could attain our targets and we could get the application live in the right time. So just look over this diagram. I'm just using the annotate one. Yeah. I'm talking about this diagram. See, this is dev. In the development, it comes the code part, right? The plan first comes the planning, then comes the code, then comes the build, then test, then in the operation layer, it comes the release, deploy, operate, and monitor. So DevOps is the complete combination of from the staging of planning, coding, building, testing, then releasing, then deployment, operate, and monitor. For this, we use different kind of tools. The planning is the first stage where we talk about what about the applications that we are going to use, right? Code is, we are now writing our application in the form of code, and then that code needs to be built in the right format, right? So for example, we push the code through the Git, and Git is being integrated to Jenkins to build the code, to check for any kind of errors. And we check, then we test the instances that where if there is something wrong with that code, and then if we find it okay, this is all good, it goes to the release stage. Then we proceeded with the deployment. Then we check if all is good, then it goes to the production stage, and then we keep monitoring our application. And once it is done, this process is continuous improvement, right? So if we monitor, if we find something wrong, it has got improvement. Am I clear to you?
Yes, yes, yes. I'm clear.
Yes, yes, yes.
This is the DevOps technology that we are talking about. So if I'm talking about the crux, what I told you, so it's a software development methodology which will improve the collaboration between developers and operation team using the automation tools that we are going to learn in this our whole program. These automation tools are implemented using various stages which are a part of the DevOps life cycle, or you could say the if we go software development cycle. So this was the brief introduction of the what is DevOps. Let's move on to my next slide. Let me rub it on. So this is the DevOps lifecycle that I explained to you. Let me know if you guys have any doubt. Now I am giving you an insight how a DevOps team works, how in an organization level things move on, right? So, right. So the DevOps cycles divides our software development life cycle into the following stages, right? That I told you. The plan and code comes into the continuous development. Build and test comes into continuous testing, and it is being integrated with the continuous deployment that comes under release and deploy and the continuous monitoring. And there is a continuous integration that is done by our Jenkins. You know, Jenkins, what does Jenkins do? Jenkins just integrate all the stuff on the same platform. That is called continuous integration. And generally we call DevOps as a continuous deployment with the continuous integration and continuous monitoring. So DevOps consists of 4 stages: continuous development, continuous testing, continuous deployment, continuous monitoring. Why we are using the word continuous? Because earlier when I talked about the waterfall model, what happens? Like I'm the part of some project, like I have to make an application that reads about the users login credentials or the login data that stores that. Okay, and then authenticate it and let the user log in into that application. So the login authentication portal that I have to develop. The planning has been done. I have written the code in whatever format my application is going to be deployed, right? And might be the writing a code could take about 1 month for me. It could take more than 30 days. So other stages would be on hold, like other members hired for continuous testing, continuous deployment, continuous monitoring would be idle, right? In the waterfall model, that's the disadvantage, basically, that one person is working, but the other teams which are dependent on them, they are just not working, right? They are being idle. So this was the productivity loss. So when the DevOps comes in picture, that is the agile model or the DevOps model, what is happening now? Now I have made in one part of the code. Now I feel okay, this is just authenticating the credentials. Then I will push it through the GitHub or the Git to the my gen to the my like any of the build software, maybe Maven or something like that.
Marvin.
Yeah, so it will build the code. Then using the Selenium or any kind of tool, we could test the code at the same time. And then in the Jenkins, they are generally plugins that we installed. I'll show you when we would be studying it. Then there would be the release and the deploy pipeline. So we could deploy it either in the Kubernetes, either in the Docker, anywhere we could deploy it. And that part of code is continuously like building, testing, and deploying. And we are monitoring as well with our monitoring tools, maybe the Nagios or Prometheus, anyone, right? Right. So in this way, the DevOps team functions. Now, what happens? Now the development team is doing their work, the testing team is doing their work, and everything is done in simultaneously. So it has ultimately decreased the time of our delivery as well. Otherwise, if I talk about the waterfall model, what is happening that I am just developing it for 1 month. I took the time of developing, then 1 month will take to testing, and then if in case there would be any errors or the bugs, they will come to me again. So the work would not be simultaneously, so there would be a lot of time taking. Understanding my point? But here, if I build a one excerpt of code, it is being tested right that way, and if there would be error, it would be come back, I'll fix it, then it will go to deployment. So this is would be the continuous project. So that's why DevOps is being the SDLC side life cycle is being divided into continuous development, continuous deployment, continuous testing, and continuous monitoring. uh Clear to you guys?
Yes.
Can you
So,
please
yes,
explain it one more time?
Okay, yeah, sure. Could you please help me that where are you, like where you are have any doubts so that I could clear you?
excuse me. Do you mean that during waterfall,
Mm-hmm.
there was a lot of time consumption?
Yeah, there was a lot of
There'll
timing
be
concern.
lap. Yeah, there'll be time lapse. Yeah.
Yeah. Could you please explain your doubt so that I could help you in a better way? Could you please repeat your doubt, guys?
I don't have any doubt. I don't have any doubt.
Okay, someone asked me a doubt.
Yeah, I think that was Mary.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I said I was kind of late, like, but you can
Mm-hmm.
just
Okay.
continue.
Okay,
Oh,
Mary.
okay.
So
Okay.
you want me to explain the whole process again?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, sure. I could help you that. Maybe you were not in the demo class, so let me give you a crux that earlier, generally, we were following the waterfall model, which is usually the time consuming. Like if my company, for any application formation, there might be the 4 departments. So each department is kind of dependent, like the development team. Development team first will write the code, complete code for that, application, then it will be gone to the testing team, and then with the deployment team, and then with the monitoring team. So what will happen, there are 4 stages, and once one department will complete their work, then only our work will go to another. But in the DevOps life cycle, what is happening, whatever the work I am doing on the daily basis, like I am just working on one excerpt of code, for example, in an application I'm just working on the login authentication part. So I could develop it, I could push it, and went if it went for testing and the building. If the testing team finds any bugs, they find it's not appropriate, it's not good as per the security purpose as well, they test it, then they could send it back at that day with me. I could fix it and send it back. In this way, simultaneously things is happening, and that tested code could goes for the deployment and then for the monitoring. So simultaneously, all 4 teams are working on it, and within 1 month, when my development would be finished, my other stages of work would also be finished. But in the waterfall model, what is happening? Until or unless one department doesn't complete their work, other department couldn't start their work. Understanding my point?
So
Yes.
do you mean that like
Hmm.
for this model, it's like a continuous process, like all the
Yeah,
departments they're working at the same
right,
time? Why
right.
for the waterfall model, the,
Yeah.
the development team
Hmm.
need to work first and then send it to the testing team?
Yeah, right.
Okay, I got it.
Great.
So
So,
that kind of creates delays. It
yeah,
takes a longer time for the project to be completed.
right.
Okay.
So let's move on to my next slide.
There is a question. I
Okay.
I
Mm-hmm.
have a project. I just got a project from a Bank of America,
Mm-hmm.
where the Bank of America want me to create a website where their
Mm-hmm.
customers can be accessing their account online.
Mm-hmm.
So in that case, using waterfall, what do you do?
See, if you using waterfall, what I'll do, first of all, what in the Bank of America project, they might be the banking projects or something like any project. You will start, making your code. You would be developing the stages. Okay, how would your front end would look like? How would your back end would look like? And developing, designing everything will definitely took time. All right, until or unless you do not develop plan and everything on your side, you couldn't send it for the testing. So in the waterfall, you will complete your work, then it would go to the testing team, and then testing team or the building team will definitely give you some errors. Okay, this is not as per the standards of Bank of America, we need that kind of changes. There might be security concern if you are going that way. So they will give you something, errors or something bugs, or they will suggest something changes, then it will come back to you, right? So already you invested like 1 month for developing and doing the best of your part, but still testing team and the building team comes to you like this is not as per the standards, there is something that you could improvise, then you have to give you more days to that. And if you see the code, which is there would be the stages of the coding. If the front end is being that much good, it hasn't gone for the integration part, the deployment and the monitoring part, it is still stuck within the development and the testing team. So what do you say, it would be time taking, right?
Mhm.
So that's the thing that I was explaining.
What we did was that we had a meeting with the bank,
Mm-hmm. Okay.
and the meeting comprised of architect and lead management
Mm-hmm.
in our own parts.
Mm-hmm.
And the part of the Bank of America, it involves staff. So we were asking them for the requirements
Mm-hmm.
because they were supposed to give us the requirement
Right.
that we use to construct this account so that their customers may be able to access their account online.
Mm-hmm.
So when they gave us a requirement,
Mm-hmm.
now the architect, now they needed to use that requirement to design that project.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So after when they designed the project now, they had to, the next stage was implementation.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So during implementation now, us developers now, we came in because at the level of the implementation
Excuse me.
now,
Excuse me, Elvis.
Yeah.
Are you using the waterfall, or you are just telling us about the project as a whole?
I'm using the waterfall. Allow me
The
to just
waterfall.
finish.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay. I just want to be.
So at the level of implementation now,
Mm-hmm.
we, the developers now came in now to write code.
Mm-hmm.
So after when we wrote the code, they needed to test it.
Okay.
And once they tested it and validated the code now,
Mm-hmm.
they deploy it for users now to be able now to access their account.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So the technical team now came in now because it needed the maintenance.
Mm-hmm.
In case of any fault now, the technical team may be able now to see what they could do so that
Mm-hmm.
the account shouldn't go down. So this is one of the things that we did as developers on the
Mm-hmm.
project. So I just
Okay.
wanted to see if we're on the track or not.
Okay, I understand that whatever you have told me about your project and all. So, what is your the question for me? Like, what you want to understand from me here? I want could you please quote your just question? I have understand all the things that you told me. Could you please repeat your question?
No, the project was that we developers
Mm-hmm.
should create a
Mm-hmm.
software
Mm-hmm.
so that the Bank of American
Mm-hmm.
customers may be able to access their account online using
Mm-hmm.
Waterfall.
Okay. Okay. So you are using the waterfall model. Okay. So it depends on the, company. It would be time taking until or unless you wouldn't develop anything, you couldn't forward it. But generally in organization like the, IT services company, they generally use the DevOps model because they usually have teams. They do not want their teams to be idle at that time. Otherwise, it would be a productivity loss. They have to land or launch their application maybe in the 15 days or the 16 days. It's it's the choice of the company. Nothing is enforced on anyone. If they will go by the DevOps in the agile way, it would be faster because every day you would be connecting with Bank of America, giving their pushing your codes to the master branch through the Git. It is being continuously integrated, deployed, and testing. Everything would be in sync. When your code would be ready, you would be more close to get your for example, you told me that users could log in online. That could be live as soon as possible.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's the automated CI/CD pipeline do. And you do not have to also uh, like uh, how DevOps works. Let me give you an introduction to that. Any other doubts? May I proceed with it?
Yeah.
Okay. See, so how the DevOps work? There is a developer. I believe this might clear your question. The developer is doing their development. There is a version control system, and in the version control system, here in the course, we would be learning about the Git. Okay, what does Git do? Whatever the changes you are performing in your code, it would be pushing that as well. You just have to use the Git push command. It will keep that updated, right? when we have deployed everything and integrated everything in our CI/CD pipeline, we do not have to do and everything. Whatever the changes you would be doing in your code, pushing it to the master branch, it will update the changes. It's a version control system, right? And once your code would be developed, would be built, would be integrated with our Jenkins will automatically send this code for the deployment. First, it will went to the testing server. For the testing, we could use Selenium to check, and there are many other tools that I think security team uses to check if it is as per the standards of any organization. And after that, we could send it to the production server. Not all the companies go deploy their code directly to the production server. Reason, they usually start to deploy in the dev environment, then it went into UAT, and then it went to the production. All right. So, and when it is being deployed, whatever the instances of the code being developed, it is being continuously monitored for any bugs, for any errors, for any security risks, or for anything. And feedback is continuously shared with the developer. Okay, you made this thing and we need this changes come, it would already automatically get synced. And these kind of the cycle is known as automated CI/CD cycle, because we integrate everything. Generally, there is Jenkins. In the Jenkins, there is the plugins. Plugins are available. Like we have Git, Maven, and I could use Ansible, and I could use Git, Maven, Ansible, and we could use Nagios and everything, right? So they are the plugins, and in the Jenkins, we program like the way that, okay, if any changes would be synced, Jenkins pipeline will get triggered and it will update Maven, Ansible, and Nagios. So in this way, automated CI/CD pipeline works, and in this way, DevOps teams work. And to track all the changes, and to how they will communicate in an organization, we generally use ticketing tools or the tracking tool. And most like 80% of the organization I have seen uses the Jira task board. And if I talk about the Jira task board, what happens in the Jira has an in Jira, you create a task, like you have to develop the Bank of America project, right? There would be a lot of things that you would be developing. There would be the login authentication portal. There would be a database which is recording the login stamps. There would be a database that would be recording the error log, and there would be in the backend. So there would be the backend architecture as well for that application, right? So it would be a bigger task develop, right? So bigger tasks are generally called at epic over there, and that epic is divided into small stories. And generally, like in a team, you three are there: Mary, Olale, and all. So it's being divided among three. That stories would be assigned to you among three. And like when you are doing their work, there would be a subtask that you could assign it to the integration team, the deployment team, that whatever you are developing, that should be tested at that moment, integrated at that moment, and being monitored. Understanding my point, that how the teams are working over here?
Yeah.
Let me
Yeah.
let me know if you have any doubts.
I have a question here. Why do
Yeah.
developers use versioning?
Why the developer use
Versioning.
version? Yeah. The versioning developers use, like if you get any error with the testing team, right? The testing
Yeah.
team suggests any feedback. You would be making the changes over there in your code, right? That changes should be synced with your master branch. When I like when I'll go with the Git session, I'll tell you how the Git workflows work. So the changes should be synced. And also when there would be a bigger team, right? Right now you are the only developer, so you feel okay, there's no need of versioning. Whatever the changes I would be doing, I would be pushing it out. But in a bigger organization, there is like 10 to 4 or 10 to 20 developers. Every developer is doing is working on the same project and doing some changes, so that needs to be synced. And for the better monitoring, like for their team leads needs to check who is making that changes, who is pushing that changes, and is it as per the standardization, is it required or not. That's why we need the versioning control system in an organization, because multiple developers would be working at the same project at the same time, and everything needs to be synced.
Hmm. Nice one.
Understand my point?
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So maybe move on to our next slide.
So is the code different from an artifact?
Sorry, could you repeat it?
Is there any difference between a code and artifact?
Okay. You're talking about the difference between the code and the artifact. Yes.
Yeah.
Raw code is different, and the builded code, or the code which is being built by the Maven, it is known as artifact. And artifact is a term that we are using in the Azure DevOps, like in the Microsoft Azure. The build code is known as artifacts.
All right.
Yes. Any other doubt?
Mm, hmm.
Could we proceed it?
Yeah.
Yes.
Cool. Okay, let me know if you have any doubts. Generally, the raw code is uh, is not called an artifact. The built, tested, and the produced code is generally known as artifact. And mostly we use this term in DevOps, Azure DevOps. Let's move on to the we have already discussed that how the continuous development comes. So in the continuous development, it's about the committing code to the version control tools such as Git or SVN. Also we use it, and tools like Ant, Maven, Gradle we use for building and packaging the code into an executable file that can be forwarded to the QAs for testing. There comes an interesting point, that is, what do I mean by the executable and that can be forwarded for the QAs for testing? For example, I am building the code in my system, right? In my system, I would be using the different environment variables. So that code needs to be in that file that could be compatible for other systems, or that could be compatible for the testing as well. So what does the Maven do? Maven build your codes in an executable file where everyone in the team or the infrastructure of the DevOps could use it for their purpose. Is it that clear? Any doubts here?
Yes. Good with that.
So once developers,
Mm-hmm.
once they build the code, they commit it to GitHub.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay. They commit it
Once,
to GitHub.
yeah, there's much more tools actually. There's Bitbucket as well, but the Git is the most easily used tool generally. It should be the version control system. There is a product of Atlassian Cloud as well, and the Azure DevOps as well. They give their version controlling system as well. So it depends on the product that you use.
All right.
Right. Now, in the continuous integration that we have discussed, this is the critical point. The continuous integration stage integrated CO'd all the all the DevOps lifecycle, which is the part of the automation process. That is, we call it CI pipeline. CI pipeline means that if I'm making any changes in the Git, that changes should trigger my pipeline in Jenkins, like it would automatically ask the Maven to build it again and to deploy it again and to monitor it again whenever that change is being happen, right? So that's the continuous integration pipeline that we call it. And same goes with the next slide, the continuous deployment slide. The code, when the code is built, environment or application is containerized in the Docker or pushed to the server. So it happens like whatever the changes being has triggered our continuous integration type pipeline, that changes should be deployed to our Docker or Kubernetes as well, whatever the tool we are using for the deployment purposes. And now, when we move on to the continuous testing, this stage deals with the automated testing of the application pushed by the development. If there is an error, message would be sent back to the integration tool. This tool in turn notifies the developer of the error. If the test was a success, the message is sent to the integration tool, which pushes the. So in this way, all the stages work. And in the continuous monitoring already discussed, the stage continuously, like every time 24/7, monitors the deployed application for any bugs or crashes. It can also be set up to collect user feedback. Collected data is sent to the developers to improve the application.